Welcome back to the Permissionless podcast. And of course, as always, this episode is brought to you by the team at Guardian, and we're upholding our promise to go deep with DeFi builders, folks building on the edge of what's possible and exploring new types of tech and unlocking new strategies, new UX, new ways for the existing DeFi users landscape to interact with the blockchains that we all know and love. And today we have a wonderful conversation with Light and Bugsy, co-founders of Maia DAO. And we got to talk really, because they've been in this space for a while, about everything that they've experienced and been through up to this point over the last handful of years building in the DeFi ecosystem. We talked about why did they transition to Arbitrum, and we got to speak about one new product that they've been working on for a little while, which is bringing a new UX to bridging with a combination of OFTs and intent-based solver networks. So we got to talk all about that and about a few different DeFi protocols that they're bringing to market, stuff they've been working on for a little while. And we will get into this in just a few seconds. But first, of course, my name is Owen. I'm a co-founder here at Guardian. We've been doing security reviews in the Web3 space for almost 4 years at this point. And really, we set out with the vision that DeFi would encapsulate the entire global financial system. And we realized that the level of security and assurance available to protocol teams and institutions wanting to build in the blockchain ecosystem was just not anywhere close to where it needed to be to give the level of security and peace of mind and assurance to be able to house billions and billions and trillions of dollars of assets for the global financial system. And today I'm happy to say that we have achieved the standard necessary to bring the highest tier of assurance to institutions and teams building in the Web3 space. At Guardian today, we use a multi-phased audit approach where we have a review phase where multiple teams have a look at the code base and do a complete audit, and then a follow-up entirely separate phase where we do a public bounty contest to have the public take a look at the work we've done, cross-check our work, and catch any glaring vulnerabilities that could have been missed in the prior phases of the review. And with this combination, we're happy to say that we have reached the standard necessary to be able to ship in an environment with billions at risk. And today, with over $10 billion in TVL secured, really now it's time for DeFi to catch up. And of course, without further ado, let us dive into this episode with Light and Bugsy from Maia DAO. Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, dude, Bugsy and OX Light, thank you guys so much for taking the time to hop on. I think we've got a ton to get to in terms of everything you guys have been built, and I'm just interested in hearing what your journey has been to come into DeFi. But maybe we could start there. So I guess, maybe Bugsy and then OX Light, like, how did you guys first hear about DeFi? How did you first get interested and come into the Ethereum ecosystem? And when did you really enter the space?
Yeah, of course. First things first, thank you so much for the invite. Couldn't be more happy to be here and talk a bit with you guys. So, long story short, I was studying software engineering at the time, and people around me got involved with crypto, with DeFi specifically. At the time, in the first DeFi summer, frenzy. I actually didn't personally get involved at the time, but I did start easing into it, and about a couple years forward from that, I did actually start getting involved and actually looking into the coding aspect of it, because that really captivated me.
Yeah, I just want to say a very similar path here. I guess, seeing those cinematic videos, I'm not sure if remember those, but it was definitely awesome to learn about this stuff. And then, eventually, just started working on this. Actually started as a freelancer, doing a couple of stuff. And as soon as Bugsy and Marshall, our other co-founder, asked if we wanted to, or if I wanted to join them in creating something, it was wonderful. Really glad they did, and really glad I accepted it. And that was essentially the beginning. But I think since early 2018, so really after the major, it was a sad bear market to enter, but well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you guys came, especially since 2018, before DeFi was even really in existence. So I guess you guys have seen the full sort of evolution of DeFi. What do you think? Because obviously, originally it was dark. There was not much, but today DeFi has evolved into a few distinct verticals that have great product market fit. But how have you guys seen DeFi change? And I know you guys have shipped a lot of stuff over at Maia, which we'll get to. But uh, how is DeFi different today than it was originally? Maybe not as early as 2018, but 2020, 2021. What do you think has changed the most since you guys have initially gotten into DeFi?
Yeah, there are a lot less waste. So like
Yeah,
we don't really have any we have concentrated liquidity. We have like a lot better MEV
yeah,
solutions and interoperability solutions. It's definitely one of the biggest ones. L tools are finally reaching or almost reaching stage two.
yeah,
It's definitely even a good progress in both UX efficiency and centralization, but still a long to go. We still haven't reached stage two, and we still have all those training wheels on that
yeah.
shouldn't exist in the future, but well, they still do.
Yeah, the infrastructure is slowly improving.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Was just going to double down on what Light said that yeah, true. The first basically generation of DeFi protocols really were. I mean, waste was really a
Yeah,
big highlight there. The second, the so-called DeFi 2.0, the the branding that they gave it at the time, supposedly already started tackling this, but with all of these technological improvements that we've seen this last couple of years, for example, yeah, it's really been supercharged in that sense. A lot less waste
yeah.
and a lot more thorough use of resources.
Yeah, and I think Maya DAO came about in that sort of era of DeFi 2.0. So maybe we could touch on like what was the initial sort of vision of Maya and how did it sort of come about initially way back? I think what was it 3, 4 years ago at this point?
3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Yeah, early 20, we launched it was 4th or 5th of January 2022. We actually started the Twitter, no Discord for a couple of days. Telegram only came, I think, a few months later.
yeah,
People were asking for Discord because, well, at least understandable. We were trying, man, we don't want that. We just wanted to ship the code.
yeah,
But yeah, the community was definitely an important aspect. But yeah, we actually started that as a reserve currency, and yeah, we essentially deployed Maya that way, and then Andre Cronia put out the stable AMM, and we
yeah,
deployed that in Metis. There wasn't basically any other solution for stable swap AMMs. Instead, there were Curve, but it wasn't deployed there, and even in other chains, it wasn't as well appealing. They weren't as decentralized. You had to set like amplification factors and stuff like that.
yeah.
This this new curve didn't. So it was well really fun to really look at that. It was a lot simpler than what we did later on. Was building stuff from scratch. Definitely forking it and just tweaking it a little bit was
Yeah.
definitely easier. But it was yeah, just building the UI from scratch and everything was fun.
Yeah, so were you guys originally an Ohm fork, or was it sort of a spin-off? Was it a custom, or did you just straight up fork Ohm 2.0 or something like this?
So we actually were, I believe, one of the few that forked time. We didn't fork the original and we did that, and then we did well. A few months later, we actually well paused the emissions completely, and then shifted the well Maya completely. It doesn't have any more essentially rebate emissions at the moment, but well Hermes, well they still have. It's essentially the Dendrocronia. Well, the solidly original model is widely adopted right now. It still kind of goes into that. You do have the rebases, the weekly rebases that well do come from obviously, the vote escrow model is from Curve, and well, the voting was kind of improved. But yeah, it's yeah, it was nice to see that. Well, obviously, well, it was a huge news at the time. There was a lot of noise about the new protocol, and well, I think today we can understand why, because it's definitely something that even how the yield is distributed. If you vote for something, you get the yield or the revenue from that from what you're voting for, and not just from the whole protocol. So it's there's more incentives to vote for the right thing and stuff like that. It's well, we see it, I think, in almost every DeFi protocol today.
Yeah, and obviously this model has had a lot more staying power than the Olympus sort of like original rebase and stake model. I think there's not many protocols that are left from that sort of era of just ohm forks everywhere. I think, I mean, I would say, of course, you guys are one of the last couple, but obviously you've iterated and added a lot more products, and you took the stable swap AMM from Andre Cronje, and that's worked out quite well with a handful of projects. But so how have you guys decided like what to build, what not to build over the years? Because at this point, you guys have built quite a lot.
Yeah, so essentially after deploying the incentive system, we wanted to essentially not be only in meetings. It was extremely clear that certain protocols wanted to run liquidity on a random chain, and
Yeah.
we weren't deployed there. And they were essentially, yeah, I don't think we, even for some time, really agree on a path that
Hmm.
essentially to go forward with this. There was essentially a lot of solutions, but or a lot of ways to do it, but they were not really great. So we essentially, well, took some time to do some research and essentially yeah, well, like a common solution at the time would be to essentially launch a fork on each chain
Hmm.
and see and essentially let that go. But that was we did all agree that it was unethical to do so, just as one can expect. So yeah, so we essentially well looked on interoperability solutions. Later, we actually
Yeah.
started working with AnyCall. Then AnyCall ceased to exist, unfortunately, and we switched our code base to layer 0. But yeah, that was essentially, well, why really we wanted to. We always kind of loved the AMM space, and it goes hand in hand with the interoperability space.
Yeah, and the interop over, I mean, it's become a huge trend, and I think you guys were early to it. I think you were one of the first protocols that we saw going interchain and using layer 0 v1. And now are you guys using layer 0 v2? Are you still on v1 rails in some product areas? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so Ulysses, basically our omni-chain liquidity and execution solution, it's built on top of layer 0 v1.
Yeah.
So that's static there. But in the overall products, particularly with our latest update, the MetaBridge, we are in fact interacting with all the versions of layer 0. But in this, well, but it's through the different OFTs that exist. It's not well a custom integration that we've made on chain. It's simply well indexing all of the OFTs that exist on the supported chains, and obviously interacting with the different versions of them.
Yeah, and so how do you guys decide like MetaBridge was something like the next thing that you guys needed to build? Is there like just problems that you're running into yourselves, or is it something that you guys hear from the community? What's the impetus for this?
Yeah, I really think it's a mix of both because the community obviously has an appetite for new chains, new
Yep.
specific niche tokens they are involved with, and we really needed to find well a solution that really was well how should I say it, holistic that really covers
Yeah.
all the possible variations and. This was the best route that we found, which brings us kind of closer to an aggregator type user experience in terms of moving assets around. But overall, we believe that integrating other solutions and if this leverage enables us to be faster, support more use cases, and have more user retention in our user interface. For example, they don't need to go to another website just to
Hmm.
interact with that specific token. No, they can do all of that inside, in-house. No need to exit the page. And since one of our core, selling points as well is this aspect of easily managing all your assets regardless from where they are, what they're doing. So we obviously are. This was logical for us. This really was the most logical route. Instead of just implementing our own bespoke solutions for every problem.
Yeah, and so what is like the ultimate version? Like let's say, played out like 5 years into the future, what is like the ultimate evolution of what you guys have built at Maia DAO? Is it, aggregated liquidity no matter what the chain is underlying? What is like the final experience you guys are building towards?
Yeah, and Light, do feel free to chime in if you'd like, but I'd say that's definitely the ability of using any asset that you have on any chain easily, spending them in one go, and also the possibility of basically earning yield or rent. We already have the liquidity rental platform, so since if there's a party renting the liquidity, on the other hand, there's someone earning from providing it. We currently are locked to Uniswap 3 concentrated liquidity. It was our choice to bootstrap the system, but we really want to be open. Any source of yield, any source of revenue, to be able to participate in this system.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Light.
Sorry, really want to point, restate what the last thing Bugsy said is that, yeah, there's a lot. AMM yield is definitely a huge one, and it's definitely something that's lucrative, or sorry, maybe not the best word, but it's definitely it won't cease to exist. Other yield type as well, but we're essentially where we are inserted in the essentially liquidity rental place for us. I think it's right now we're essentially you stake out liquidity your LP tokens. It's UNIV3 NFTs in our staker, and you get yield, and you give us the fees. But if we could essentially be on top of another liquidity rental system, maybe protocols that are using us and essentially another liquidity rental system combined, will get even more liquidity for them. So it's essentially we want to essentially be more free in terms of where we can insert ourselves in renting essentially or exchanging our emissions for fees, and allowing other protocols to leverage it.
Yeah, and then I mean ultimately it becomes like you're leveraging the distribution, the users that you have, and bringing, any kind of modular underlying liquidity source to the aggregator and abstracting away all the complexities, because there is a lot of complexity in especially the concentrated liquidity space. How have you guys approached like the UX of liquidity rental and just minimizing all the, I mean, because there are a lot of technical details underlying. How have you guys approached that from a UX perspective?
Yeah, we actually have tables. It's automated liquidity management and solution, and that's definitely one of our ways that we did. Is it's even if you're just creating an NFT in the same range, in the same position as another person, people do prefer to add liquidity instead of creating NFTs. It's essentially slightly easier to manage. Also, we don't get that permanent NFT forever. You kind of, if you remove liquidity, you kind of forget about it. I think it's a lot easier for people to think about it, and it won't. They won't get attached to that position. For example, if they have liquidity, remove it. They obviously in this LPs they are more attached to the LP, but if you have we have users that have hundreds of NFT positions, for example, and that's definitely something that also doesn't make sense. So yeah, aggregating users whenever possible is just more efficient.
Yeah, and what would you say is like the bottleneck to getting, like $1 billion of liquidity under management? Like what's keeping you guys back from reaching higher TVLs and being able to aggregate more liquidity today?
Yeah, a big one was we actually we had a bug bounty recently late last year, and we're still trying to get that trust back a little bit. There were no funds lost, but we did have to do a white hat rescue, and people were essentially the protocol was paused for a couple of weeks, and that was unfortunate. But other than that, obviously that's not the only thing. A lot of stuff goes into this. But yeah, we also people are a lot well, suspicious of new protocols,
Yeah, yeah.
especially bridges, and well, that doesn't really play a lot into our hand. That's also why we, for example, integrated across for intent, so you can actually
Hmm.
swap really, really fast via UI, you buy tokens in a couple of seconds, or even less, depending on what chain you're from.
Yeah.
So, trying to tap into really well-established protocols and have as little as possible that, well, adds other risks to users is a big one, not just because of a general security standpoint, but also for us as well is beneficial.
Yeah, that's interesting. So over time, have you guys moved from like the let's build it ourselves and have custom to just like let's fork existing stuff or integrate with existing solutions?
Yeah, we did suffer a little bit of the not invented here syndrome. Sure, if
Yeah.
it's but unfortunately, I think it quickly went away. We do try to avoid as much as possible that. So if we can use something from someone else, we'll do it instead of trying to
Yeah.
build it in-house.
Yeah, and I'm interested because you guys have been on a number of chains at this point. What are the biggest chains for you guys, or do you even think about it that way anymore? Um, or are there like some chains that you guys are really focused on or heavily involved in?
We do still essentially think and really believe that, especially if you're trying to, well, rent liquidity or have your liquidity, having it in one place, it's generally better. It doesn't make sense for
Yeah,
people
yeah,
to try and fragment liquidity, for example, especially today, with intents, you can essentially bridge really fast from different chains, at least majors, and so why should you have liquidity on different chains when you can just have on one? We are focusing on Arbitrum first. It is a great chain, but there are other great chains as well.
yeah,
With our essentially, well, future expansions, our goal is to being able to essentially uh, well, what we talked about of it being able to rent liquidity on more yield sources, other chains is
yeah.
definitely included there as well. So not just yield sources from other chains as well. So expanding from UniV3 to on Arbitrum to whatever yield on whatever chain.
Yeah, and have you guys, I mean, obviously already integrating with the underlying UniV3 infrastructure, have you guys looked into these products at all where it's like the leveraged concentrated liquidity, yield farming or anything like that?
Yeah, we do. We are always afraid of adding stuff that our users can really
Yeah.
get wrecked. It's
Yeah.
we do try to kind of avoid that, but it is useful. Especially we do have a lot of stable pools, and that's at least a lot safer
Yeah.
than volatile.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, depending on since we are really on UniV3, we try to use native tokens whenever possible.
Hmm.
People usually can just use the other solutions on top of our pools. There's nothing, well, stopping them from that. That was one of the major benefits from UniV3. Uh, all the analytics, we can just use them, for example, and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm not sure if you want to add anything, Bugsy, but yeah, it's just. Uh, yeah, we don't really have them integrated into our staker because
Hmm.
we rely on users having to stake the NFT. So it's unfortunately well incompatible with most other solutions.
Yeah, I mean those products are notoriously hard to get right. And then even when you do get them right, to be able to communicate to users how their how their positions are actually performing. I've heard that is like that's one of the most common things you hear is like people don't even know if they're actually like making a good yield on their assets because I mean it's hard to really communicate the effects of a permanent loss, especially when you add leverage to the situation. Yeah, and it is also just very technically hard to actually do something that is not going to be manipulatable and exploitable. Anytime you add any logic on top of concentrated liquidity, I mean, as I'm sure you guys are well familiar with, the edge cases just get uh, really hard to analyze and reason about, especially like all this rounding and tick math and stuff like this. But I mean, speaking of which, what is like your development process? Do you guys um, go and work backwards from, hey, we want to have this in state, or are you going from first principles and just building up towards something that you want to implement from scratch? It sounds like now you're mostly trying to integrate and maybe fork existing stuff. Like what's the development process from like mechanism design to getting this stuff out the door?
Yeah, we do try at least to avoid forking as much as possible.
Okay.
So if we will if we're gonna fork something, we will at least try to use it first directly.
Yeah.
So well, that's what we will try to do. For example, we were actually planning on rolling out intents, and we quickly essentially found out that we could just use an existing solution, and
Yeah.
already battle tested, already audited. It's just cheaper as a whole.
Absolutely.
But yeah, right. We usually we actually our me, Bugsy, and Marshall. So
Hmm.
Marshall is more focused on the UI. He generally uh, architects and leads that and kind of in charge of it. Me and Bugsy, we also essentially help out in the UI, but we try to also work on other stuff as well whenever possible. We've lately worked on a smart contract for essentially being able to manage your Hermes positions if you're a DAO. For example, Maia has a lot of Hermes or Hermes locked Hermes and a
Hmm.
way for the DAO itself be able to manage those tokens without anyone having custody of them. So that's essentially what we've been working on, the smart contract. It's a relatively small smart contract. Most of our focus has been on UI, and we built a relayer for a cross
Hmm.
recently. So yeah, we haven't been as focused recently on the smart contract side, just because, well, there are a lot of solutions. So we try to use them since, we can change the UI at any point, and it's a lot, easier to manage than. Uh, we are not against, but we do try to have. We don't have any proxies other than governance contracts,
Yeah.
just because they are proxies by themselves, and we don't want to build a new one. But it is, yeah, we do try to everything that we deploy is either immutable or can be set immutable.
Yeah. And I think I mean, of course, you guys have been building in this space for 3 years, a little over 3 years, maybe at this point. Uh, how has your approach evolved since you started, especially around like security for a team like yours that's been building and iterating? And of course, anybody who's been in the space for 3 years has ran into some issues on the security side or on the, just things that happen in production or gotten a bug bounty. So I guess how has your approach on that sort of like that area of, getting things finalized to production and having it ship and be successful and secure and everything smooth. How has your approach changed? I mean, obviously, since I think a year ago when you had the bug bounty, any learnings from that? Like, what has that process been like for you guys?
I do believe the bug bounty did kind of give us a little bit more, I would say, healthy
Yeah.
paranoia. I think it's always nice to have more paranoia and this kind of stuff. It's always yeah, I guess there's definitely too much paranoia, but just because it's the definition of the phrase, but it does come in handy. I don't think we weren't paranoid before, but I guess if we had been a little bit more, we will have had to pay that bug bounty. Fortunately, everything came out fine, but it was extremely stressful. I think
Yeah.
we ever want to go to for it to repeat again for so many reasons. And I guess the smart contract side, I just add more tests, even if it's something that we manually reviewed a bunch of times. We just adding more tests.
Yeah.
If we think of something that can be tested, we'll test it. So even after that, there's stuff that happens. Yeah, testing doesn't find everything, obviously. Otherwise, there won't be any bugs.
Yeah.
But
We can only hope.
yeah, Just something that I do find that at least a little bit interesting. We actually take different approaches in the UI. For
Hmm.
example, in our backend, we do have a pretty good coverage, but in our UI, we mainly rely on peer reviews. So we have a lot more peer reviews than tests in our UI,
Hmm.
just so we can also move faster. But yeah, testing some stuff in the UI will just be incredibly painful, and we'll need to change it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and have you guys looked into or explored at all any like invariant testing or anything like that for the smart contract side?
Yeah, we actually, yeah, the the code base in question that was under the bug bounty was, I think, the one that was most tested, but it was also the more complex. It
Yeah. Yeah.
involved a lot of moving parts, and there were a lot of contracts. So, but yeah, we did have invariant testing, fuzzing, and fork testing, and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. We actually, Bugsy did a layer zero fork test environment, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, as soon as we were gonna publish it, they or share it with everyone, they released the V2. But
Hmm. Oh yeah.
yeah, we we did find it was extremely handy, and even for internal testing, if we wanted to see like a lot of one thing that's we have incredibly handy is fork test environment. We just put the RPC chain, and we just have calls in Foundry, and we use it to test, for example, UI interactions and everything. If a call fails, we want to see the
Yeah.
traces. That's what we do. And yeah, well, seeing the on-chain traces for a UI call is wonderful. And yeah, that's the fastest way we have to do it. And yeah, using the LZ fork test, for example, is something we've done in the past, so we know. Yeah, well, before we had all the live deployments that we could just test with, we did that, so we, well, knew what to expect.
Yeah. No, I will say the cross-train stuff is the hardest to test. You just have to test it in some like I mean, we even tested stuff in like production environment just to see like what would the deviants do in this case. And that's the only way you can find some of these issues. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I do want to say the environment that Bugsy set up was actually really nice. You changed chains, and you could essentially execute all pending messages when you change chains. So it was something that well, came extremely handy, and we wouldn't be having been able to have half the tests we did if we didn't have that.
Nice, yeah. I guess switching to more of like the growth and go to market side. One thing I like stood out to me. You guys said you're expanding to more chains in the future, but you do have like a solid base on Arbitrum. So I guess what's been the process of like choosing Arbitrum and kind of building a community there and that rollout.
Yeah, I guess the two main well factors that well kind of pushed our decision to pick Arbitrum is definitely liquidity. We are in a liquidity heavy field. We need to be in a place where liquidity is abundant and cheap, and Arbitrum made total sense for that. And also, we didn't want to impose any unnecessary barriers to our users. So having cheap transactions and the fast finality was also very important to obviously be attractive for these more common and day-to-day users. We wouldn't be if we had picked, for example, mainnet. Obviously, it would be a different crowd that would be daily interacting with the contracts, as we are aware. We really just want it to be as accessible as possible. Sorry, go ahead.
No, totally makes sense. And I think we asked as well, like, how have you guys seen from a builder's perspective, the space evolve over the past like 3 years? But I think Arbitrum's grown a lot over that time, and also what DeFi users in general kind of want. What's your guys' perspective on, how DeFi users look at things over the past few years, what they're most interested in, what they look for, in this current age of DeFi?
Yeah, actually, after I said what I said in the when you asked the previous or similar previously, I did at the end. Sorry, at the end I did think. Well, I didn't say anything about meme coins, for example, and that's definitely been a huge thing. And I won't really say a lot of stuff about it, but well, I guess well, at least it has definitely taken eyes from DeFi, and maybe. maybe not more important, but definitely more useful stuff in a sense that doesn't rely on, for example, just fun. And it's definitely okay to have fun and great to have fun, but there's always a lot of utility that DeFi should bring and aims to bring that wasn't really in the spotlight for a long time now.
Yeah, definitely, and I think you can do both. Like I saw your tweet today from Hermes that you can support over like 160 OFTs, so like that includes the memes as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's I think uh, if DeFi wouldn't be accepting memes, it won't be DeFi, right? It needs to be open. It needs to be centralized. If we're gatekeeping anything, then we're gatekeeping stuff that we don't want as well. So, for good or bad, we need to have this stuff open, and it needs to be, it doesn't need, it can't have the barriers of entry that other stuff has, or else it will stop being decentralized.
Yeah, totally agree. And I guess maybe I'd be interested in like personal takes. I think memes have been hot, but I think maybe as of late they've slowed down a little bit, or at least the sheer number of new ones coming out. Do you think we're hitting a point where we're going to start to see some new narratives, or it's just a lull in the market and memes are still, maybe focused for a lot of traders? Where do you kind of see where things are at in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like, in these basically attention cycles, they've been getting a bit tighter, and users have been hopping from trend to trend in, closer periods of time. But we do hope that obviously there'll be eventually some kind of return to value. Obviously, just like Light said, I'm not saying that the funner, more meme kind or community oriented, meme coins, for example, are inherently bad by any means. That's not what I'm saying. But DeFi getting more traction, getting more common users, it's definitely plus EV for everyone in the ecosystem. So we do hope that there will be a switch in trends where people kind of go back to basics in a way.
Yeah, 100%. And I think another thing that there's kind of like two ongoing narratives, like this past cycle is of memes and then institutional DeFi side. And I think what we've seen with that too is some protocols, even some that we've talked to that have made specific trade-offs when it comes to decentralization, like moving things off chain. But I guess is more, OG, like, really leaning on the decentralized side team. What are your guys' perspective on things kind of heading that way when it comes to institutions getting on chain?
Yeah, it's tough. It's not only that's a big one, definitely a big driver. There are a couple of things happening, changes occurring in the space that do hint towards a certain complacency or acceptance that some decentralization or some centralization may be necessary to help get us where we want to be. I do feel like we are losing some ground on that field. But then again, it's not black and white situations. For example, we can see in the case of feelings and solvings and all the intent novelty that's been going on, which is great. We have implemented it. It's undeniable that faster feels, high versatility of interactions is net positive for the ecosystem. But it's also been raised that basically, how do we say, outsourcing this liquidity for swaps to off-chain markets, which is what intends end up being at the end of the day, can lead to sort of a more oligopoly market structure. Was actually put forward by Taran Chitra in one of his recent papers. I actually did enjoy that one, but it is really a nice point that I don't believe is talked as often as it could, because I think people just accept it as a stepping stone, just like we had with L2s, but we're just now getting to the point where they're entering stage 2.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I'd be curious to think how you think if users should care more about this kind of stuff, because I think if you were building in the space in 2020, it was so important that things were decentralized because at least in the U.S. the regulatory market was so unclear, and I think we've seen even in like less than a year that when the regulation opens up, it's like things have moved off chain and everyone's okay with that, but things fluctuate, and if things ever were to tighten up again, then it would be, I think there might be another big push towards the importance of decentralization.
I think it's just what to say. It was actually Dan Robinson that tweeted it recently that if you really want to, yeah, touching on the solver things. So you basically, if you want, you just need 2 or 3 really good solvers and have competition between them. You don't need 100. It might even be worse if you have 100 over 2 or 3. So maybe there will always be essentially decentralized points if anyone can use the contract, if anyone can essentially request a fill, and then if you have 10 fillers, you only need one of them to not be, for example, ACC compliant, and they will fill you even if you're not if the other ones are not okay with that. So I do believe that unfortunately, or for maybe fortunately, but for good or bad, we'll have definitely some really centralized points in DeFi, and they will essentially fuel all the other ones. But most likely, if you're requesting a fill, you're gonna get filled by someone that is filling like 30% of the market. So if they stop filling, most likely everybody will get worst quotes, but they won't stop filling because they're making money.
It's true. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Um, I think so. We talked a bit too about how you're leveraging layer zero, and then you also mentioned this design philosophy of if you don't need to completely rebuild something and you can leverage other architecture, that's kind of the preference. So, are there any other like design partners or people you're working with or collabing with right now?
Yeah, we actually we wanted to add more AMMs, and we actually did essentially a stable swap. Sorry, it was a balancer stable swap wrapper that we also added to our routing, and we forked the smart order router from Uniswap and everything like that. But eventually, we right now for essentially the to allow any chain and any at least at Paraswap. Yeah, we're using Paraswap now. It's Velora actually. Yeah, Velora is awesome. They essentially get better quotes than just UniV3 unless you only have liquidity on UniV3 on Arbitrum, but most tokens have liquidity in a bunch of places today. So yeah, we are essentially using Paraswap for routing. We definitely want to add more sources, but one thing at a time. And we're using also a cross for intents. So it's actually really nice to be able to trade tokens in a split second. You like if you're bridging from Optimism to Arbitrum, you need to wait 2 seconds, so that at least 2 seconds, so that your transaction is included in the next block. And then Arbitrum has what 250 millisecond block time, so essentially you can get a swap in basically a block and a little bit more. So it's really cool to see that happening.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, you mentioned a lot of different stuff in terms of underlying liquidity protocols, and then swaps and kind of like aggregators like Paraswap. Um, what is like the number one sort of feature set that you guys are working on right now? Is it bringing in more underlying AMM protocols? Is that what is going to move the needle for users? What is going to make the big difference for folks who are using Maya today, and maybe even bring a lot more people into the Maya ecosystem in the future?
Yeah, we do have some protocols that are essentially interested in renting liquidity, but
Yeah.
they, for example, have OFT, so they don't really want to rely on, for example, Ulysses. That
Yeah.
it's actually pretty similar, but completely understandable that they have their in-house solution. So we recently adopted OFTs, and that's the reason. That's the main reason behind it. And right now we're working on having essentially swapping before and after the OFT bridging. So we want to essentially bundle more actions together. So if you want to not just bridge an OFT, but bridge and swap it, you can do that you can definitely already do that through our UI, but you will need to bridge the OFT first and then swap it,
Yeah.
for example, and that's not really acceptable for really good UX. So yeah, that's what we're essentially working on, for example, this week. But I guess more major improvements. It's definitely we're looking into a couple of stuff, but for example, account abstraction is a huge one if we don't want to have a bunch of actions, signing a permit and switching chain and then approving, and it's a lot of stuff happens. And yeah, the other essentially big one is the liquidity rental system that we're trying to improve. That's not really on the swap, but on the swap part of things, more on the island liquidity or the protocol liquidity rental part. That is Hermes, but yeah, that's the well, the top things that we're working on. I'm not sure if I missed anything, Bugsy.
No, I think you covered it nicely. This last point, basically leveling up the liquidity rental system and opening it up to any source of yield. Yeah, I don't think there's any other, well, high-level objective that we have right now.
Yeah, basically more interoperability with other kinds of protocols and tokens, obviously. And then as you start to add more and more support, your users that are already in the Maya ecosystem, they get access to more and more different types of tokens, different types of projects, and it kind of just compounds upon itself. When you add more to your network, then basically the network just gets more and more powerful, and then it becomes, I guess, more of a better offer to integrate with you guys. So today, are folks coming to you and wanting to integrate with your liquidity rental system? What does that look like?
Yeah, we do have well, a couple of long-term drivers that have been with us even since our original Medias times. But our key strategy that we like to adopt in order to, well, reach new circles and establish relations with other protocols is basically trying to work besides them, particularly larger projects by, for example, creating something very simple as listing their token, creating a gauge, pitching a bribing strategy, which eases into start small and grows progressively. All of those interactions really give us a chance to introduce what we're building, introduce where we'll be later on in the future, and that's even how we've gauged interest for future updates. For example, even before obviously the MetaBridge update, we did some research, gauged what protocols are actually large protocols are using OFTs and would be interested in obviously experimenting with our solution, and that's really key for us, is trying to get closer to these larger, more established brands, so we end up cross-pollinating with our community members, growing our own brand awareness, increasing the brand confidence. So it's really all of these actions together that really introduce the network effect and enables us to break into new circles, really.
Yeah, it's a powerful flywheel, especially, I mean, liquidity is so sticky. Once you can get the right actors and the right incentivization models in there, then it really will just start to compound amongst itself. But you mentioned, yeah, I mean, going back to the meta stays, I mean, you guys have obviously moved to Arbitrum mainly at this point, but what was the original decision to build on Metis? And then maybe we can discuss, like, why was it the better move to Arbitrum ultimately?
Yeah, at the time it was basically an emerging ecosystem. A lot of the things that we were interested in building, and also at the time we've already talked about it earlier in this call. It was obviously the reserve currency on fork trend. It was really a very effective way of fundraising publicly from the public. So that's something that we really wanted to execute on, and Metis, since it was also in its own hype cycle at the time, made total sense to merge and couple the two together. Obviously, this was also a bit influenced by some grants program that they had going on at the time, like any developer team should take into account when picking an ecosystem. But yeah, I'd say that these were the key drivers. I really highlight this. What do you think? Like, any other thing you'd like to highlight here?
Yeah, actually, for a long time I was more a fan of Optimism and Arbitrum actually, but maybe they didn't still have it, but for a long time they had that deployment ban, so you needed to be whitelisted to deploy stuff,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I'm not sure if they still had it at the time or if they recently lifted, but we were essentially looking all over these chains, and Meat is recently launched. Arbitrum had a bunch of reserve currencies. I think Umami is one of those that
Yeah.
only exist, but other than that, I think it was. Yeah, we were essentially thinking, should we go to Arbitrum or should we try to go to another emerging chain? And yeah, we ended up landing in Metis for yeah, for more reasons like Bugsy discussed, but yeah, they're definitely an L2. We were and are still L2 aligned and
Mhm.
believe in that roadmap. So yeah, it made sense to do that.
Yeah, and then obviously moving to Arbitrum because of the deep liquidity, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. The liquidity in Meat is unfortunately
Yeah.
isn't really deep. We actually well, we were like 90% of the volume on the chain
Wow.
for until we left, or until a few months before we left, and we didn't make that much volume. So even now, a tiny fraction of Arbitrum's volume is a lot larger than Metis has.
Yeah, and I mean just the room to grow inside of that ecosystem is huge, and I think picking obviously being in that market gives you guys a lot of benefits. Did you guys see like was there an immediate change in the amount of volume you guys were able to do when you did make the switch?
Yeah, actually, for better or worse, so we didn't see really a huge uptick in volume.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of, I guess it was mostly arbitrage. We had a lot of
Hmm.
major tokens like ETH-USDC, METIS-USDC, or BTZ, and we're kind of the only source of liquidity for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And we had less fees than any other AMM, so we just had a lot of volume there. And yeah, coming to Arbitrum, we didn't have the lowest fees possible, so we had more well, natural volume and not just arbitrage volume. So uh, it was what we did see was a really uptick in users. We did
Mm.
retain a lot of users from Metis even until recently. When we see our classical illicit deployment, we see a lot. Metis is still one of those top chains
Hmm.
that users still use, but it is yeah, we do still essentially have a user base from that chain. But yeah, we do have essentially a lot more our major essentially noticeable was protocols.
Yeah.
Reaching out to someone, hey, are you interested? What chain are you on? Arbitrum, that's great. And they didn't really feel the same way when we said that we were still in meetings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, even just the number of protocols that have reached a certain amount of volume, a certain amount of liquidity for their token on Arbitrum is, you know, a way higher than on Meta. So I can imagine from that side of the business makes things a whole lot easier. Even though you were originally cross chain, just having that liquidity hub on Arbitrum probably helps a lot. But and I think you guys mentioned, has it just been a team of three? What's the team looking like currently?
Yeah, so we're three, and we essentially we're three founders, but we have Cronflux, amazing. Yeah, he has so many roles. He manages our socials, all our Discord, our Telegram. He's extremely cracked, and maybe not the best word to describe. I'm sorry, Kron, if you're insulted, but it is. Yeah, he's extremely talented, works really hard, and always looking always to improve. He's actually a community member, and one of those community members that say, "Hey, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that?" And eventually came on board, and yeah, well, and he did do that. So it was really nice. We also have Badger Paws, our BD. He extremely he's well, he's natural English person, so he's the one in the team that speaks well. Maybe if he was here, he will definitely, at least he was explaining everything a lot better and have a soothing voice. But yeah, we have, for example, some Arbitrum Founders Club and Sonic as well. We have some essentially public AMAs with other protocols, and he's a host frequently. Also, reaching out to other protocols as well is really nice. He gets our image. He worked previously on BD as on other in cross-chain protocols, so he was already familiar with the weeds. And yeah, we have a couple of devs right now. We only have more two. One of them is working on the UI, another on the back end. So that's they're actually friends we had, and we knew them. We knew they were actually talented and capable. So we asked them if they wanted to join us, and they did. So we're fortunate to well have that possibility. We had one more dev that's actually Kronflug's friend. We didn't really until now at least we never really essentially hired anyone for any technical role that wasn't really known from one of the team members. So that's really how everyone got in uh, on the technical side. Yeah, at least right now, that's what it is. Definitely there is a certain trust that needs to go into someone, at least in our opinion, and it's harder if we never had any input from them, and we don't know them personally.
Yeah, I love that, man. Very grassroots, and you get a lot of people who are more mission oriented and they're really bought into the product. And like you said, people that know, they just know what the brand is. They know from day one already what Maya DAO is about because, they've either been with the community for a while or they've been really close with you guys. And I mean, an ancillary benefit of that is that you don't have to worry about them being from North Korea and just insider attacking you. I think that's been really on the upswing as of late, which is getting really hard for larger organizations. Um, yeah, and I think we'll see how that plays out. But definitely the grassroots approach and using people through your network is superior in that sense. But are you guys on that note? Are you guys looking to bring on any more developers? Are there any roles that you guys are hiring for currently?
Not at this exact moment. We also, at least sometimes we actually not really, for example, Kronflux and Badger, we
Hmm.
weren't really actively looking for anyone. Honestly, we probably should have, but we weren't really, and they approached us and we did hire
Yeah.
them. So it was, and similar stuff also happened with a couple of the technical roles as well.
Hmm.
Uh, but it is something that yeah, we're not really actually looking for someone because it does take time and effort to really have an open job position,
Yeah.
and we really understand the fear of hiring someone, for example, from North Korea, and
Yeah.
it is
It's very real.
yeah, and actually not hiring people obviously avoids it. It's not a solution in any kind of way, but well, trying to be as careful as possible with that and being cautious is something that we do try to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess paranoid isn't only for security; it also
For the organization.
goes to other stuff as well. But yeah.
Yeah, and then later on allocate an appropriate amount of time and resources to make sure that that is well properly done.
Yeah, I mean, especially in any system. I mean, I think your guys' contracts are for the most part immutable and um, not totally. A lot of smart contract systems are just basically controlled by a multisig, hopefully a multisig. But that, especially if you're going to have anybody protocol engineering, that part is just extremely scary as well. Just even if they're you got to start worrying about their own OPSEC, and if they get compromised, not even if they're actually from North Korea, but if North Korea is able to compromise them. So there's just so much attack surface for DeFi protocols, especially those that try to remain decentralized. Um, I mean, I would say the vast majority of DeFi protocols aren't totally decentralized. The vast majority of them are, essentially just a multi-sig owns some ability to be able to shut something down. Um, so yeah, there's just a lot of attack surface, and it is very hard to fully vet out and have really strong OPSEC as we've been seeing in the past couple of months and quarters, and probably sadly as we'll see in the years to come. This is an area that probably needs a lot of development to be able to have those systems to keep that on lock. But I mean, okay, so it sounds like you guys have brought in a handful of other developers and folks who are helping out. What does the day-to-day look like for you guys as founders of Maia DAO? What's your day-to-day look like at this point?
Yeah, we're basically us three are always on a call, so we're
Yep.
always on Discord, and well, we just then mute ourselves whenever we want to say something and ask something, or most of the time we well ask for input, maybe work on something together.
Yep.
But we're literally always on Discord if we're online, so yeah, that's essentially what we do all day. Just be on Discord and work, obviously, not just being on Discord, but we do essentially have meetings depending on which day it is, and that's it. We try not to have essentially, for example, day-to-day meetings on irrelevant stuff, like especially with devs. We try to give
Yep.
some kind of liberty. That's the correct word. So yeah, things need to get done. We don't need to be on top of people. If we do need to be on top of people every day, it's a bad sign.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what we try to do. So avoid the daily stand-up. While yeah, maybe weekly meetings are more useful than having a 10-minute meeting every day.
100%. Yeah, if you hire the right people, then stuff gets done without you checking to make sure that it gets done. And that just makes your life way easier and eventually allows you to actually scale past a certain degree if you have those individuals who can just take full ownership. So I definitely agree with that. And I can relate to just being on call all day. For me, it's Slack, but for you, it's Discord, obviously. So yeah, definitely understood on that side of things. And yeah, I mean, so in terms of things coming up, we've got MetaBridge, which I think just released recently. Was that this week that MetaBridge was made publicly available?
Yeah, we actually, I think I have it live for 2 weeks, but
Okay.
aligning all the announcements and everything, it's finally fully announced. So I think it was yesterday or today that was yeah really published the full announcement with all the layer zero support and everything.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's been live for I think a couple of weeks now.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah, it'll be 2 weeks in a couple of days. Exactly.
Awesome. And then so obviously MetaBridge is out now. Folks can go and use that for OFTs with the Maia ecosystem today. And is there anything we should make folks aware of? Anything we should push them towards for any releases coming up? I know you said you're working on some VE Hermes stuff on the contract side. What else is coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, just want to say something first. Obviously, if you want to add more stuff, please do, Bugsy. But yeah, more routes. If you don't have a route in our UI, that should
Yeah,
exist. That's what we want. We
absolutely.
right now, for example, we don't have the OFT and swap combo. You need to do that separately. Yeah, one-click actions. That's or one-click route. So even if you do have to do multiple stuff to get that token, you should just need to put one token on top, another token on the bottom, and hopefully not soon enough you don't need to specify the chain. Well, that's a tough one to crack. It's that's definitely the goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, not just yeah the chain abstraction way, and that's the end goal definitely. It's hard to say. It's hard to say exactly. When we'll ever get this to get this as a ecosystem, because if we don't specify the destination chain, someone does, and if they want to get the token somewhere, the other protocol needs to say it. But yeah, it's the goal is to just uh, be similar to Binance in a way.
Yep.
Uh, you don't specify what chain want to get your Ethereum.
Yeah.
You say it when you leave and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what we should be able to thrive as an ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the points, super important, 100%. And also would like to highlight quickly that thanks to the contract that you've mentioned, Owen, the Maia Vault contract, we'll also be having boosted strategies appearing in our UI. Currently, like we've mentioned, the contract is already deployed. We're simply going through the governance process of activating
Yep.
it and adding it to the system. But this, in short, will mean that we'll have even more competitive yields
Yeah.
for anyone looking to interact with the system.
Absolutely. So I mean, more utility, more routes, more support. I mean, just better UX overall, uh, and also shipping, more incentives and more utility for the token. So I mean, a lot for folks to look forward to on top of the MetaBridge announcement just this week. So I mean, you guys are shipping a lot at this point in time. But where should we push folks towards? I mean, obviously we'll have the Twitter down below. I think Discord as well. Is there anything else that we should make sure to call out for folks?
So I'd say Twitter and Discord follow along, just like you said. We also have, like anyone, we have a GitHub for contributions. If anyone is interested to, well, getting more into the weeds and
Yeah.
looking, seeing what's up. But I'd say that those are the key routes to, well, find out what we're up to and what we're doing.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man.
Just want to add, if people like more reading, more long stuff, we do have a Medium with a couple of articles. Recently, more roadmap kind of stuff, we made like an article on our relay recently. So if people are interested in reading that kind of stuff, we do have a Medium with that. But yeah, Twitter and Discord definitely the top, GitHub as well, if you want to look at code.
Excellent. Yeah, so we'll link the Medium as well, so folks can check out some of those articles you guys have, get some longer form details on the stuff you guys are building and your thesis on the liquidity rental space. But yeah, I mean, last of all, I just want to say like thank you guys for taking the time to hop on and run through all this, everything you guys have built in the past and what's coming up in the future. It sounds like you guys are shipping even more than ever now. So I'm excited to see what you guys come out with in the coming months.
Yeah, thank you too. We are a huge fan of you guys, so yeah, it's a huge pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Well, likewise, guys.